All right, Bio. You are working now on, let me go back to your table of contents. You guys are working on video 1B, History of Photosynthesis. Okay, so let's talk about it. In our first video, we talked about ATP and how do we generate some of that energy that's used in photosynthesis and cellular respiration. Now we're going to talk about how we discovered the different parts of the photosynthesis equation. Okay, so we've got 3 scientists to talk about. Then we're going to put up the actual equation. Then we're going to talk about how chlorophyll adds to that equation. Okay, so we're going to start first with Van Helmont. Okay, Van Helmont's experiment. The original hypothesis that plants are going to grow or get bigger by taking material out of the soil. So let me kind of fast forward to his experiment really quickly. So right here is his experiment. So what he did was he had a tree and he measured the mass of the tree and the dirt. Then he let it grow for, I don't remember, 5 years it says right here, I'm sorry. He let it grow for 5 years. And at the end, what he expected to happen was he expected that the mass of the soil that it was in would have gone down tremendously. He expected the mass from the soil to transfer into the mass of the plant. But what he found after 5 years is that the mass of the plant grew quite a bit. It grew to almost 170 pounds eventually. But the mass of his soil remained almost exactly the same. He started with 200, and over time he only lost 2 ounces. Okay. So his original hypothesis was that soil added mass to the plant, but he found out that that was not the case. Okay. His conclusion was that the mass of the soil didn't change, that the mass of the plant must be from water, because he knew that he was adding water. He could see that he was adding water to the plant. He wasn't completely correct, okay, but he definitely did add that water part of our photosynthesis equation. Okay. It's actually from carbon dioxide, you guys. So the mass of a plant actually comes from carbon dioxide from the air, not from water. But Van Helmont, he figured out it did not come from the soil. Okay. Priestley is our next person, and let me kind of show you Priestley's experiment first. Okay. So he said his hypothesis is that there's something in the air that fuels combustion, and that plants create whatever this is. So it was oxygen. Okay. So his experiment, let me kind of go through that first. Okay. It's kind of a jerk experiment. He kills a mouse in it. Okay. In the first one, we've got, he knows that living things have to be exposed to the air to survive or they suffocate. He also knows that flames have to be exposed to the air, otherwise they go out. So he had this glass jar sealed off, and after a certain amount of time, his mouse suffocated and his candle went out. So his theory was that if you put a plant in there, the plant is creating something that helps to keep us alive, but also helps fuel combustion. Okay, so he definitely proved that. Okay, conclusion: when he placed a live plant in there, candle would burn longer and the mouse would survive. Okay, so Priestley sort of added our oxygen part to photosynthesis. Okay, so Van Helmont gave us the water, Priestley gave us the oxygen. Okay, and then Jan Ingenhousz gave us the light. Okay, Ingenhousz did an experiment. He did a few different experiments. What you really need to know is that he found out that plants only create that oxygen that Priestley talked about. Plants only create that oxygen when they're exposed to light. So he sort of added the fuel to the equation. Okay, so we've got oxygen now that Priestley discovered for us. We've got Van Helmont added the water. We knew that went in somewhere. And Ingenhousz added the light to it. Okay, so now let's look at our equation and figure out what we've got. Okay, Priestley gave us our oxygen. Okay, so we knew that oxygen's coming out. So this part of the equation, P.S. you guys, you got to make sure you write this whole equation. Okay, Priestley gave us this oxygen part right here. So write the equation, you guys, and then also write the scientists' names over it. Okay, so write Priestley over this oxygen right here. Okay, we know that sunlight fuels it. Okay, so you guys can write Ingenhousz over this middle part and make sure you draw sun or write the word sunlight. This equation, you guys, the chemical reaction, which is signified by this arrow, it cannot happen without sunlight. Okay, so add Ingenhousz right here over your sunlight. Okay, add Priestley over your oxygen, and then water is going to be your Van Helmont. Okay, so add Van Helmont right here over your water. Okay, so we've still got organic matter and carbon dioxide to kind of add into that. We know that plants take in CO2 and they take in water. Okay, Most of the mass of a plant, you guys, comes from CO2. I know it doesn't seem like carbon dioxide has mass because it's around us all the time, but it really does. And carbon dioxide, that carbon part, adds to the mass. Here's the mass of our plant, okay, organic matter. It's called glucose, okay, C6H12O6. And then it also releases oxygen. Okay. Now, the other thing making this happen, we know that sunlight is fueling the reaction. The other thing that is used right here in the reaction is chlorophyll, okay? Chlorophyll, the stuff that makes our plants green, okay? We have more than one type of chlorophyll in our plants, okay? They are pigments, okay? Underline the word pigment, okay? Chlorophyll is a pigment that absorbs light energy for photosynthesis. Remember back to physics, okay? When you have something that's green, it reflects green, but it absorbs everything else, right? Chlorophyll is a really important pigment for that. It's really important that it reflects green and absorbs all those other wavelengths of light. Remember your Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, even though there isn't really an indigo. So if your green plants reflect the green back, that means you're getting to absorb the red energy, the blue energy, the orange energy, okay? All those different things get absorbed, and the different chlorophylls do those two different things. Super important so that we can absorb light energy here to fuel the chemical reactions that give us these two things, okay? All right, guys, that's the history of photosynthesis. You guys are all done with video 1B. Thank you so much.